diabetes, how it works, why it's so dangerous, and why it's so important to get control of your blood sugar. Okay, in previous discussions, you understand how cholesterol plugs arteries, right? Remember I said that when you have a high LDL, it starts depositing. LDL is the bad cholesterol. How it starts depositing cholesterol in the arteries, and the arteries start forming what's called plaque. And then if you don't have enough HDL taking the cholesterol out, it builds up, and pretty soon it blocks the arteries, right? I think you all are aware of that. And I think just from general education, most people are aware that cholesterol will do that to you. And if it gets to block a large artery in the heart, you get a heart attack. If it blocks one in the brain, you get a stroke. So that's why that's important. What most people don't realize is diabetes works in sort of a similar way. You see, what happens with diabetes is it starts plugging not the large vessels, but the smallest vessels. And that's what most people don't realize. You see, when you have lots of sugar in your blood, and it gets high, it starts sticking to everything. You see the G for glucose? The glucose will start sticking to everything. It'll start sticking to proteins and enzymes, and it'll start causing problems. The way I describe it is, do you know how to ruin a good engine? You hear the stories about putting sugar in a gas tank. And what happens is the sugar gums everything up. It's like molasses, and it'll plug up all the fuel lines and everything like that. Well, in an analogous way, that's kind of what high sugar does in your bloodstream, but it takes much longer, and you don't feel a thing. So when you have high blood sugar, G for glucose starts sticking to things, and it starts making enzymes not work properly, and it starts creating what they call hyaline deposits, these little deposits in the capillaries. Just like cholesterol causes these deposits in the big arteries, diabetes, high blood sugar will cause these deposits and thicken the walls of the capillaries. And if you understand physiology, the capillaries are the smallest vessels in your body. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where blood cells deliver oxygen to your regular cells. So these capillaries are one cell wide. Why? Because the capillaries, the blood cells need to touch the walls to deliver oxygen. So, you know, at the tips of your fingers, at actually all your little tissues, inside your muscles, inside your brain, inside your organs, they have these, where oxygen is delivered in vessels that are one cell wide, okay? So these red cells are going through the capillary, and then all of a sudden it comes up to one of these deposits caused by diabetes. Well, if it's only one cell wide, you can see it doesn't take much to block it off. Now what happens usually is, now this part doesn't get circulation. What will usually happen is, in most parts of the body, there's what's called collateral circulation. Like if it's in the middle of a muscle, you have blood cells coming from every which way, so you'll get blood flow from somewhere else and not much of a problem. And then eventually, if this is blocked off too long, the cell will have some distress, and your body will actually make new capillaries, so it'll bypass that. The problem with that is when it's at the tips of your toes, right, the tips of your fingers, there's no collaterals. It's at the end of the line, right? So that's why when people who have diabetes a long time, their capillaries start getting plugged up, and the tips of their toes will start losing circulation, and then the nerves start dying off, and then now they start to lose feeling. You start getting numb in the toes and the feet, or it might not be numbness, it might be pain because the nerves are in distress. And we're not sure if it's just the circulation with the nerves, but this high blood sugar might be sticking to everything and making the metabolism of the nerves abnormal. So now you get what they call diabetic neuropathy, and your legs start hurting, or they go numb, or you don't feel it right, or even your tips of your fingers or hands. I had a patient who had to wear gloves because everything she touched would be painful because of the diabetic neuropathy. And by the way, it'll stick to blood cells, and that's one way they measure how bad your diabetes is. They call it hemoglobin A1C, or another word for it is glycosylated, glyco for sugar, glycosylated hemoglobin, meaning sugar is stuck to red cells. And so what they do is they measure your blood levels of glycosylated hemoglobin, and that's how they know sugar is starting to stick to things and cause problems. And you should not have more than 6% of your hemoglobin glycosylated. And under that is actually normal because you have some blood sugar. So that's why they measure that in your blood, if you're in your blood test if you have diabetes. But anyway, the biggest problems with the blockage of capillaries are, number one, it causes poor circulation in the feet and the hands. It's the leading cause of amputation, below the knee amputation. It's your kidneys, and this is a big problem. Your